at those, I told these guys already, you've got drag folds, those faces, if you will, that the climbers like to climb on, are the dip slopes that are now ramped up from the drag of the normal fault there. Somebody mentioned there are thrust faults in the district. Yes, there are. There's an incredible amount of faulting here. But the mineralization in the district is on this limb of the, where are we? I should go get glasses. Okay, thank you. So I should go down and get my glasses. So we thought that this is faulting related to the east side of this Eagle Creek fault structure, and all the mineralization in the district is along that fault zone, which probably provided the conduit or the pathway for the mineralizing fluids. The deposit here is, these are all Eocene sediments. Gresson, in his mapping, described the surrounding rock, the unmineralized rock, as chumstick, but the mineralized rock was actually swak, which is older. It's a younger Eocene sedimentary unit. That didn't, in our observations underground and mineralogically, that didn't appear to be the case. It's all chumstick.
How can you tell the difference?
He has a set of criteria in there that I was going to review. One has microcline, one doesn't. I think swak had microcline, chumstick doesn't. And there's some other things that were ambiguous. Okay. So I don't think you can use those criteria, the ones he listed anyway, to differentiate the ore zone as swak and the host rock surrounding it as chumstick.
If you look at the U.S. Geological Survey map just a couple of years after this, they have this as chumstick instead of swak.
Yeah, okay. Backing up a little bit, there was a PhD student from University of Idaho, Larry Ott, that did work on the structures of the deposit. He worked for us as a summer student, and he did his PhD thesis on this. And he saw that there was this right-hand Eocene torque on the northwest part of the North American plate here, and this is a, I don't know, what's the word he used, but this is a sort of a sigmoid graben, rather than just a basin and range type graben where you just have a pure extensional environment. It actually opened up like this, and he saw evidence of that right-hand torque in other structures in the district. So if we were standing, this is kind of superimposed, and we'll take this with us, but this is a cross section, almost east-west, through the deposit complex. They're superimposed onto this one section, but there's a number of ore zones that are silicified chumstick formation. And if you imagine a hypothetical epithermal gold deposit, the fluids rose up through here as the pressures, the lithostatic pressures were less. This deposit, these fluids moved up like this and spread out like this. What I read back in the 80s is most epithermal gold deposits only have a maximum vertical extent of about 1,500 feet. And so you had something that looked like a chanterelle mushroom. Subsequent torquing or structural development broke this into blocks, and later an igneous body was emplaced right here, and that's the Wenatchee Dome rhyodacite. It's an intact igneous piece. It appears to be. There's no faulting within it, and it shouldered its way up next to the ore zone probably along the same fault zone that the mineralizing fluids came up. Ore controls in the ore zones are both stratigraphic and structural. So, for example, on the east side, there's a fault zone. On the west side, and the ore zone does go up against your andesite. That's what we called it, an andesite. I don't know what were you calling it.
Yeah, we're still from the saddle rock. We call
Yeah.
Well, Jeff sampled it
Yeah.
a couple
So
summers
That's
ago.
a fine name.
Okay, somebody said they thought it, one of my geologists that wandered through here said he thought it was a trachyte. I don't know. Is that the right word? That's parsing hairs, maybe. I don't know. So you have this chanterelle mushroom shaped thing that's controlled much by the stratigraphy and the structure. And
Wow, cool.
Yeah, and so an example of that, and I had a boss that didn't believe me, but I couldn't show him because we mined the frickin' thing. But if you went in on the ore zone termed that we called the mineralized rock in the district are called reefs. And that comes from seafaring jargon. Reefs were outcropping, hard, resistant things that sailors ran their boats into. So a reef is that little knob right there. So I guess you can expect that it's the first one identified. This is B reef, and the outcrop is over there behind Dr. Zentner, right there.
Not the big one, but the one to the right?
Yeah, the big one's the rhyodacite. So that's this post-mineral igneous block that's intruded, we believe, up along that fault zone after mineralization took place.
Do you have any
After
sense of how
mineralization.
long it-
Yeah, we did some dating. The margin of error overlaps, but the mineralization was 42 to 44 million years ago, and the emplacement of the rhyodacite was 40 to 42 million years ago. So that 42 and 42, there was some overlap. But if you go down here into the mine, you can see that this thing's intact. This thing is broken on its edge from that, if you will.
And what's the thought about the source of the fluids?
Well, that's a question. We never did. Were they driven by? Was it meteoric water that was driven by the heat? And like the Carlin stuff, where it's got these big circulating that are leaching gold out, or was the gold magmatic in source or not? And we never did that work. So, did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
but
But
there's some of the andesite of Saddle Rock is actually in the subsurface adjacent. To
oh yeah,
the
we
ore.
drill into it all the time. So
Okay.
if we had a drill hole come out here, pass through the ore zone through the fault, we'd hit andesite.
drill
Yeah,
northwest.
yeah, and it's a structural boundary, not a stratigraphic boundary. Did you guys see any evidence that this was subaerial or subaqueous?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, because I saw some drill core where it appeared that the andesite was gradational into sediments above or below it. That it appeared that, and that's only a couple, but it appeared that this thing is not an intrusive, that it's actually might have been a subaerial, subaqueous flow.
Well, we saw
Subaqueous.
flow banding and things that you can
Yeah.
see in any sort of viscous.
Right. But this had a gradational boundary into sediments. That's what it appeared from a drill hole intercept. I don't know. I just remembered that.
So is it possible this gold and silver is here without these intrusives?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it had to have a heat source. You don't see the intrusive over on it is. You don't see the heat source over or the intrusive over on the Lovett side. At least we didn't drill any holes far enough. Part of my job for a couple of years was special projects geologist, and we leased the old Lovett Day mine. And I hired some contract miners to go in. There was a lot of caving. Hired some contract miners to go in and open it up, and we drilled over there and looked at the potential for exploiting that resource too. It would have had to have been an open pit, and it really required about $600 gold. Excuse me.
Yeah. Huh.
Pinnacles here.
Yes, and it's it carries on up to Rooster Combe right there. I can't remember if we saw it underground any further north.
I think I read from the drilling that maybe Rooster Combe is not connected necessarily.
To Wenatchee Dome.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that. I would expect that it is. I think the lithology is pretty similar, isn't it? I don't know.
I'm talking about going up there, but it's too hot yesterday.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's the same, but I can't tell you that for sure. I know in some of the holes that we drilled down deep north of the dome, we went through hundreds of feet of conglomerate. We stuck some long holes out there. And the drillers hated it, because you get these cobbles turning, and we drilled mostly with core, so you get these cobbles turning in the drill hole. Yeah, they didn't like that too much. They were on JIPO, they were on bonus, so they didn't like that.
Well,
you don't see that much conglomerate at the surface.
No, yeah, it's around in the district, but yeah, and so we were wondering if it was like a basal conglomerate or not, but and it may be just we were drilling along strike or something. I don't know. So you're just in it forever, but there's big sections. D reef, which I'm trying to remember a little bit about. On the other side, it was like the second.
So over there?
Yeah, over in Squilchuck. So it's over the ridge. So so A reef, B reef, and then there's all the components of B reef that we mined. There's a C reef. I don't know where the hell that is. There's a C reef somewhere. I think it goes up to like G reef, and there's a little thing, some little hydrothermal things that ended up getting the reef nomenclature. Our exploration department followed this trend all the way south across Squilchuck from D Reef up over Wenatchee Heights down into Stamilt, and they would get intervals of gold but nothing with any continuity. So they, like going up towards Wenatchee Heights, there were some holes that would get like a 10 feet of average of 1 ounce gold, and then they'd twin the hole and not find anything. So really sporadic. A lot of alteration in there, clay alteration rock that you could cut with a knife. Yeah, it was scary to go in. You could just go like this with your hammer the wall. Yeah. We had a little anecdote. We had a couple of Canadian geologists that were brought down. Azamara started as it was an oil company, a Canadian oil company, and they got a minerals division like a lot of oil companies did in the 70s when they had too much money. Well, they still have too much money. but so they bought this mineral company that had mostly uranium plays up in the Northwest Territories, and so they brought these two Canadian geologists down here to log core and stuff, and they would log this sheared mudstone. It's black as schist. Yeah, dude, you need to get into the Cenozoic here. Yeah, they were funny, but
wasn't Lovett himself back in the 50s or something, a Canadian who came in?
Yeah,
American
right.
Citizen.
Yeah, he was, and his son was working for Bud Trustwell, who owned Wenatchee Silica Products. You know this story. You can see that cup, the big.
The quartz almost aeronite up in the Wenatchee Formation?
Yeah, the Wenatchee Formation. So Oligocene sediment, and they were selling originally that one into production. I'm leaving Ed Lovett for a second, but that was sold to Asarco in Tacoma for flux in their smelting process. And when they were still in business in the early 80s, and their customers were golf courses because they had this nice white sand, and so they'd load it up and truck it down to train cars and ship it off to Florida, wherever Florida has white sand. I don't know, North Dakota or somewhere where they don't have white sand for golf courses. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, but Lovett operated, and then he became involved with Bay Mines, which I think was later bought by Hecla. To get an infusion of money, and they built a bigger mill over there and stuff. It was a high-grade mine. There was a bucket of specimens in the vault at the old office over there, and there were, there's in fault zones there'd be this free gold that would be like smeared from the faulting and stuff. It had to be impressive, high-grade thing. I mean, it was the second most productive underground gold mine in the United States after Home Stakes Mine in Leeds, South Dakota. And we then became the second. And now we've been certainly eclipsed by Barrick and Newmont's post deposit and stuff down there. Yeah, it's outside Elko. Yeah, when we were done here, I could have been working there. They came up and hired anybody who wanted to go because they were new to underground mining, so they were looking for experienced miners. They had been both open pit operators.
So what does the gold look like here? Is it those fragile wires like over in Liberty, or is there's not
No,
nuggets?
yeah, that's a really good question. There are some of the veins. The veins are narrow. A 1 foot wide one would be exceptional, rare. Most of them were anywhere from 1/8 of an inch, or smaller, of course, but 1/8 of an inch up to a couple of inches. I should have brought some specimens. I have some of the gold. I'll take a picture. And,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't even think of that.
No, that's fine. So veins of what?
Veins of quartz adularia. And so there was free gold and some ruby silver in a few core samples in the vein, but the system, the mill system here, was designed to float pyrite. The pyrite was auriferous, and based on, I don't know, some laboratory work done by somebody, I think Larry Ott did it, maybe at U of I, when the pyrite mineralized, the gold was precipitating along with it, so it was auriferous pyrite. And so we had a system much like a copper mine uses to extract the copper sulfides. It was a flotation system. We grind it to basically cake flour consistency with water, and it'd go in, we'd hoist it out of the mine, go up to the mill. It'd be crushed down to like 3/4 inch minus, go into ball mills, a ball mill and then a rod mill, or the other way around, I can't remember. And then it would be floated, and we'd produce a concentrate, and it would be trucked down to the railroad yards and then shipped down to go on a train down to Vancouver, Washington, and it was loaded onto a ship and taken to Japan. And they smelted it in a copper smelter there, and we got credit, gold. We got paid based on the gold they extracted from the smelted material.
So you can't even really see the gold? Is it
Most
that
of
fine?
it you can't. Most of it can't.
You cannot.
Right.
Huh.
It's actually in the pyrite.
Yeah, it's auriferous pyrite.
The biggest ones are like the 0.5 millimeter usually, or smaller.
Oh, it'd be smaller than that.
More microscopic.
Yeah, microscopic, yeah. But there was free gold, and that's one of the arguments my first boss here had with the mill people, is there needs to be a system to collect the free gold too, because there is free gold, and if they were just focusing on the auriferous pyrite, they were sort of losing that cream, right? And we had stopes in the beneath part of the ore body down here. The grades generally got greater as you went down. This was more silicified. I mentioned we went in on 50-foot levels here. In the beneath part of the ore zone, we went in on 80-foot levels because the rocks did so well. And we had stopes that would run over an ounce a ton. And you could see a lot of free gold in specimens from beneath. But there were veins in B North as well as B4, which is really the northern extension of B North up here that had free gold. B West was lower grade, and B Reef is generally less than 1/10 of an ounce per ton. B West was a little bit less, but beneath was the highest grade zone, and part of B North was quite good too. And there's some.
So a reef is like a huge cluster of a bunch of these tiny little
soli-
veins.
It's silicified sandstone. So we'll go down and look at B Reef.
Yeah.
There was a guy that was our gold. We used to forward sell gold. I don't know if you follow gold. It used to be forward sell. So we'd look at next year's production. We'd have a mine model. I'd make a block model. I'd give it to the engineers. It had blocks that were stope width wide, so anywhere from 24 to 25 to 30 feet wide. And I used 10 by 10 so I could follow the contours of the mine. It had nothing to do with a so-called selective mine unit. In pits, they have selective mine units. And that's how specific they can be with their equipment. So if you're mining with a tablespoon, you could be pretty frickin', I'm gonna waste that tablespoon and send that tablespoon to the mill. In an open pit, if you have a frickin' huge bucket on the end going like this, you can't be very specific, right? Mm-hmm. So you make your block model with so-called SMUs, but underground it didn't make sense. what was my point? What was I talking about?
Forward.
Oh, so we'd have a block. I'd make a block model. I'd give it to the engineer, and they'd block out stopes that were going to be mined the next year. So that's the mine plan. And based on the estimate, we'd predict we're going to produce, 500,000 ounces of gold. That would be way too many. 200,000 ounces of gold next year, let's say. That's even a lot. 100,000 ounces of gold and 200,000 ounces of silver. And we'd forward sell that. We'd lock in a price, say today's price is $1,900. We'd lock it in at $1,900. If gold went up, we'd lose opportunity. If gold went down, we were locked into that, and we'd know we'd make money with our mine plan at $1,900.
Are you forward selling based on the price or on? You're saying this is how much you're gonna get whatever we get.
It's based on the price, and we have an estimate of how many tons of what grade we're going to produce. So I don't live in town.
Well, I got one burning question, and then we can kind of decide together, I guess. Liberty's not that far away.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have old timers. We'd have old timers come in and say, "Well, yeah, obviously it's connected from here to Liberty. You just got to follow the freaking trend. You'll find gold all the way, man."
That's a nice
I
old
think
guy
it's
voice
different.
there. That's
That's SWAC over there too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the rocks are older. I don't know what that means. I have no idea.
And it's Teanaway intrudes over there, which are 50
Yeah, I have no idea.
Interesting.
Eocene was a very productive epoch, right? There's a lot of mineralization in the Eocene.
A lot of things happen in the Eocene.
Yeah, I know. All good?
Depends what species you are, probably.
Oh yeah, that.
Well, if you're unaware of Jeff's work, he's been kind of hopscotching around much of Washington and into Idaho, looking at all these different Eocene plutons and volcanics.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And finding some age patterns. I don't want to speak for you, Jeff, but it seems like there's mineralization with almost all those.
Well,
Is
in
that accurate?
Idaho, there's the Idaho batholith, but there's all these stocks and stuff, and that's what seems to be associated with most of the mineralization.
Yeah, I don't. If the mineralization is not coming from the magma, then I don't really know why there would be a link to the Eocene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's it.
I thought it was magmatic, but I wasn't
Oh,
the only. I
what?
wasn't the. I didn't have any basis for it. I just see all the gold in the veins, and to me that doesn't make sense that it came from leaching of the host. You have these hydrothermal convection systems that set up and they go out and
Well, let's explore that. Wait, hold it now.
I know. That's all I know.
The veins are in the sandstone.
Right.
So why do you think the gold is tied to the intrusives?
Well,
Why wouldn't
I
the gold
think
be
the
in the
intrusive. I think the intrusives are the heat generator, at least. I don't know if the gold comes from the intrusives, but I think the gold is magmatic in origin.
So instead of recirculated meteoric water leaching from the sandstone and
Yeah, groundwaters.
host
Yeah.
rock.
Yeah, that's what I think, but I don't have it.
'Cause-
I don't have any basis for that, Ralph.
Well,
I just
don't
think
know,
that.
I don't know much economic geology myself, but the ones that have leached from the host that I've heard of are usually a different rock than sandstone like this.
Yeah, it's limestones or whatever. Yeah.
Sometimes or sometimes in an ophiolite. You get You get the peritite or mafics that have a lot of metals in them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, just as an outsider, I see all these volcanic rocks, and
I
we
know.
got gold here. I assume
Yeah, I know.
we wouldn't have the gold if we didn't have all this action. But what do I know?
There's always some soup du jour, right, in geology. I don't know.
But the point you made is the mine itself went, the shaft to get access to the ore from the side went down in what is apparently a somewhat slightly younger from the mineralization intrusion.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't associate apparently.
No, although there's a guy at what's his name? It starts with an M. He was, maybe still is, at Wazoo. Minert? Is there a Minert there? He was Scarn guy,
I don't know.
Don't know.
something like that. He brought a field trip over, some of his students over, and they walk underground. And he was enamored with the little breccias in the rhyodacite. And he was convinced that we should be mapping the breccias in the rhyodacite, and that would lead us to more ore. I was like, I don't think so. That happened later, dude.
All those academic types, they come
Yeah,
in,
you
they
know
got
what
all
that,
the
yeah,
answers.
it was the soup du jour. Breccias, and yeah, we had lots of breccias. Don't get me wrong, we had breccias all over the place. What's a breccia? Oh yeah, now I know.
Did any of the quartz veining make a stock work that looks like a breccia?
Yeah, it wasn't open. There wasn't. It wasn't open. It was closed. But so we didn't get open stock work. But we had breccias in it. Yeah, the one I would have brought would. So we had bulk silicification of the host, right? The chum stick, and then we had veins go into these fracture systems, and then we had series of veining. So we had these multiple vents. I think in one of them, Ott counted up to like 5 or 7 different individual mineralizing events that reoccupied, used these veins for pathways. And the specimen I could have brought in shows that really well. And if you want, I'll take a picture of it when I go home and I'll text it to you.
Well, I mean, next time,
But I
Tom.
should have brought some core and
Oh,
stuff
no,
too.
no.
I'm sorry, I didn't even think
Oh,
of that.
no, this is amazing. I don't.
Great.
Is this
Yeah.
all like classified? Like, like, why don't I know about it?
If I know it, it's not classified. It's bullshit.
Oh, we
there's
class it
a
under
lot of
both.
classified bullshit out there. We got to watch out for that. Yeah.
Did you if you cored deeper in here, did you come into, you know, sort of deeper level like molybdenite or any sort of?
No.
So it's not
No.
a system.
Epithermal systems tend to be pretty short, right? So have a pretty narrow vertical extent. Right, unlike some of the porphyry systems, which have low, you know, they have a lot of vertical extent. They have the porphyry core, and then they have all these offshooting things and stuff like that. So, no, and that's what I know from a long time ago. Maybe, you know, and we'd open this up on, depending where we were in the deposit, say 24-foot centers. So we drive up to the end of the ore zone, and we'd mine this out. We'd mine this out. We wouldn't go too far, but we'd do this on and on through the ore zone. And if you're looking in cross section, we'd drive in here on one level, and in B North we'd be down here another 50 feet, and we drive in 50 feet. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we're driving in, I'm looking in cross section here, and this is plan. And let's put another one in here just so we can see what we did. So let's say this is the bottom of the ore zone here. We'd open a stope up, 24-foot wide stope. We'd open it up and we'd mine this out. And then we'd backfill it with weakly cemented 3-inch cobbles and a little sand. And so this was a cemented thing. And if this was out in the country, it would have been an open pit.
Yeah.
There'd be a big hole.
Yeah.
These guys didn't want to sell, so we had a zero. We had to.
Wow,
we
yeah.
had to get permitted. We had to say, well, there won't be any subsidence. Otherwise, we could have backfilled with either tails or other stuff. But we had to use this cemented stuff, so there wouldn't be any subsidence. So we'd do another one of these. We'd cut that open and then backfill, and another one, cut that open and backfill.
Wow.
And then we'd do it up here overhand. So we'd go up to the next level and mine that out and then backfill. So this.
See, I thought you were backfilling at the end, filling the whole thing in.
We did. Okay. So in the end, we'd backfill out here, and then we go in and take the secondary stopes, and we would backfill those with loose material, because weren't going to be working anymore. So when we took out the secondaries, this was backfilled with just loose rubble stuff, no cement. So these were all backfilled. So when we left, the drifts were backfilled all the way up to the surface, even in the Rio Day site, as I understand it.
Backfilling.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have all these stopes open at one time. We'd start backfilling, yeah. I think did I answer your question?
Yeah. Okay. And then at the very end, they poured concrete in at it. And
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they poured it all the way down. I think
No.
they just put it right at the portal, you know. Yeah.
So is there a bunch of gold still here? And it's just a
No.
market that fell?
No. The deposit was very discreet. You know, one of the have you guys taken an economic geology class? Okay, what's ore?
Ore? It's the rock with the mineral inside, right?
Okay, you want to, so. Is that gold ore?
Couldn't tell you.
Well, it probably has gold in it. Is it gold ore?
No.
Why not?
It needs to be a high enough percentage.
Yeah, exactly. It's an economic definition.
Okay.
So ore is rock you can mine and make a profit at, right? And so no deposit is just like ore. This one was as close as it gets.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So, or if a price of a commodity goes up and mining and extraction costs don't go up proportionally, as the price of a commodity goes up, the geographic extent of the ore gets bigger, right? And when the price drops, the geographic extent gets smaller, if that makes sense. So it's an economic designation, not a mineralogical designation. So we had these silicified boundaries. Anywhere you were in the deposit, this boundary, this silicification was pretty much coincident with 0.04 of an ounce per ton. But the grades increased really quickly. There are only a few places where, like I mentioned in this, where it tailed off into nothingness, and that's at the bottom of B reefs. But most of the time, we could just mine right up to the structure and go, bingo, ore. So.
Was this, the structure, was that silicification zone?
No, it was these fault zones on the outside.
Fault zones. So it didn't, okay.
Yeah, when I talk structure, there's a bunch. There's this. Yeah, there's more than one. The limiting structures were often fault zones.
Okay.
So this thing had been broken up post-mineral.
Okay, yeah.
At least that's what we think. I mean, they were isolated even, right?
So it did have a stratigraphic
Component to it.
correlation, but the faults broke it up.
Yeah, I think if the thing hadn't been broken up, you would have seen it's more of a stratigraphy structure, as in folding related kind of control rather than a fault bounded control. But if you're the act of mineralization wasn't controlled by the faulting, but the ore zone was controlled by the faulting. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the fluid may have channeled on the main fault on the side of the Eagle Creek.
Yeah, but there was still
but
movement.
Then it went into the sedimentary stratigraphy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Unless it moved just up from depth into a particular sedimentary package,
Okay.
and then it was broken up, and it so much that I don't know that.
So the exact channel, whether
Right.
it's fault or just coming up.
Right.
More generally, yeah.
But there is an association with this Eagle Creek structure, both here and in Levitt, and on further south towards DeMilt with all the hydrothermal activity.
So the Eagle Creek structure continues out underneath the Columbia River basalts.
Yeah, it probably goes, well, the Chewacum Graben gets filled in, right? So it probably does. I mean, it goes under Wenatchee Heights, right? And it appears to be plunging. Like, have you been up Derby Canyon? I live in Derby Canyon.
Oh,
if
you
you
do?
go up Derby, you go up into the Eagle Creek structure from the east, or from the west, rather, up the East Fork of Derby Creek, and you drive into the Swakane Gneiss.
Right.
So it appears to be plunging to the south. So up here at the same elevation, you basically have Precambrian rock outcropping. And down here you have, it's way down there.
So the gold, maybe it continues underneath the CRBs.
Yeah, it would be a little more over this. It goes this way.
Okay.
So it goes down into Stemilt.
And then
That's the
continues
key-
under Mission Ridge. Or under Jump Off Joe or something.
Yeah,
Like, heads off that
maybe.
way.
Well, the mineralization goes all the way to Stemilt. We drilled across what's that drainage? Squilchuck. Yeah, across Chumstick up Compton's Knob to over Wenatchee Heights and down into Stemilt. We leased property all the way up there, but we didn't find anything with continuity.
You didn't?
No. And there was a guy here, a Canadian guy here, that I got a hold of me, and he was all excited because he had leased all those properties and was going to have a big mine. What he was going to have, he just wanted to promote something and then get some mining company to come along and give him money for his work. And he didn't really want. I threw cold water on it. He couldn't get me out the door fast enough. Bye. Sorry, dude. You're fired, this guy. Is it mine yet? No. So.
So besides Jacob Margolis back in the
Oh, yeah.
80s publishing a little bit of this, I don't know of anything
Well, Larry Ott
published.
did, and then there was
mentioned
we
Larry
had
Ott.
another University of Idaho guy. Oh, who is the guy? Oh shit! I just was thinking of him. Peter Symes. He was economic geologist and had two students. Larry Ott do his PhD thesis here, and a guy named Monty Milhorn. And I don't know. I actually didn't read Monty's master's thesis.
Wow.
I couldn't find it today. Someone wrote a field trip guide that went into detail with the structure and so on. That sounded like
Might have been Ott. Might have been Larry Ott.
maybe that was odd.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, Monty was an interesting dude. He was doing all this geochem stuff, and he'd come up with all these scatter plots, you know, boron versus arsenic, and then did this, you know. And then, yeah, they'd have an R value of like 0.001. And I'm like, he'd just be like, I think I see something here. Monty, look at the numbers, dude. No, you don't. It's okay not to find a correlation between the guy. My master's thesis, I found nothing of significance.
Oh, we all feel like writing that,
Yeah,
I'm afraid.
exactly.
Big
Yeah, my
plans
life
initially.
story, right?
So might you do more, Jeff, might you do more with some of these rocks right here with what you've been working on? Or you feel like you've got a couple good dates here, and why
Well,
drill down?
I think the relationship between the rhyodacite and the other rocks here is interesting.
Yeah.
Because their age is not as different, I think, as maybe people used to think.
Yeah.
We dated this. We dated the Wenatchee Dome.
Mhm. What'd you get?
44 point.
Okay.
What was it?
44.44.
Okay, so
That's easy to remember.
the margin of error, right, is somewhere like this for the mineralization in the Wenatchee Dome. And I'm winging these numbers a little bit.
Yeah, we got pretty good dates now
We got almost
from this
exactly
guy.
the same age for I think Saddle Rock or Castle Rock, whichever one.
Oh, you got that at 44 too?
Yeah.
Oh, because I thought we had something around 50 on that. I don't know. I shouldn't.
That might have been, was that
I
a
put-
calcium argon hornblende or?
Oh, I was arguing for argon. I don't know what they ended up doing. I just looked at numbers. I don't know anything about that science shit.
You're working on the computer.
I know. That's why. Yeah, that's why I'm so can't see anything.
Well, these guys are pulling zircons out of these rocks and
Oh, yeah,
getting
there you
much
go.
highly precise dates now. And so, yeah, if you're
So these are
So
not, they're
wha-
not that different in age, but they're very different in terms of their mineralization history and their composition.
Right, and I think we did see a little. Some low grades down deep in the andesite.
Okay.
I can't remember. I'm sorry. I just can't. But
That's clearly something about the rhyodacite.
so that was here before mineralization. That there's no mineralization in that whatsoever, right? I hope not. We just threw it all away. These are for roads.
But could it be